Walk through the arrivals hall at Dubai International Airport on any evening when multiple long-haul flights from London, Mumbai, Manila, and Cairo have just landed, and you'll notice something that fundamentally contradicts Dubai's carefully constructed image as the world's most desirable destination for expatriates. The crowds moving through immigration aren't the excited families and ambitious professionals relocating to start new lives that used to define the Dubai expat experience. Most are tourists on short visits, business travelers passing through, or residents returning from vacation. The telltale signs of relocation, the excessive luggage, the confused children being shepherded by stressed parents, the wide-eyed excitement mixed with exhaustion that comes from uprooting your entire life. Those markers are increasingly rare. For 2 decades, Dubai positioned itself as the ultimate destination for ambitious expatriates from around the world. The pitch was compelling and simple. Move here, work hard, pay no income tax, save substantial money, enjoy year-round sunshine and world-class amenities, build a better future for yourself and your family than you could anywhere else. Hundreds of thousands of people from India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Egypt, the UK, France, Australia, South Africa, and dozens of other countries took that bet. They relocated to Dubai, built careers, raised children, and formed the expatriate communities that made the city function. That era is ending. The flow of expatriates moving to Dubai has slowed dramatically, and in some segments, it has reversed entirely. Net migration, the difference between people arriving and people leaving, turned negative in 2024 for the first time since the 2008 financial crisis. More people are leaving Dubai than are arriving to replace them, and among those who are still coming, an increasing number are already planning their exit before they've even unpacked, viewing Dubai as a short-term opportunity rather than a place to build a life. The numbers tell a story that Dubai's government doesn't want publicized, but that's impossible to hide from anyone paying attention. Visa cancellations, the formal process of ending residency and leaving the country, have surged. Between January and September 2024, approximately 195,000 to 230,000 residents canceled their visas and left Dubai permanently. That number doesn't include people who left on exit permits and never returned, those whose visas expired and weren't renewed, or the families who departed during the summer and decided not to come back. When you account for all categories of departures, the total exodus likely exceeds 280,000 people in a single year. New visa issuances, the measure of people moving to Dubai, have fallen sharply. In 2022, Dubai issued roughly 320,000 new residence visas to expatriates, taking up employment or joining family members. In 2023, that number fell to approximately 265,000. In 2024, preliminary data suggests new visa issuances dropped below 210,000. The trend is clear and accelerating in the wrong direction. International schools, which serve as a reliable proxy for family migration patterns, are reporting enrollment declines for the first time in years. Multiple schools across Dubai have seen 10% to 15% drops in enrollment between the 2023-24 and 2024-25 academic years. Some schools that had waiting lists are now actively recruiting to fill empty spots. Mid-year withdrawals when families leave Dubai before the school year ends have increased dramatically. Administrators describe patterns they haven't seen since 2009. Families pulling children out in October, November, or January, citing cost pressures or decisions to relocate elsewhere. Recruitment firms that specialize in placing international talent in Dubai report that offer acceptance rates have collapsed. 5 years ago, if a company made a job offer to a qualified candidate, acceptance rates were 70% to 80%. Today, those same recruiters say acceptance rates are below 50%, and for certain positions and salary ranges, they're closer to 30% to 40%. Candidates are declining Dubai opportunities at unprecedented rates, either because the compensation doesn't justify the cost of living because they have better alternatives, or because Dubai's reputation has shifted from opportunity to risk. The demographic composition of those who are leaving is also significant. It's not just low-wage workers or entry-level employees. Senior professionals, managers, skilled specialists, entrepreneurs, and families, the segments that Dubai most needs to maintain a functioning economy, are leaving in large numbers. These are people with options, and they're choosing to exercise those options by going elsewhere. So what happened? How did Dubai, A city that built its entire modern existence on attracting and retaining expatriate talent suddenly find itself unable to convince people to move here or to stay. The answer is layered and complex, but it boils down to a simple reality. The value proposition that made Dubai attractive has collapsed, and the city hasn't adapted to the new realities that define how people make decisions about where to live and work. Let's start with the most immediate and overwhelming factor. Dubai has become unaffordable for anyone who isn't in the top 15% of global earners. The cost of living has increased so dramatically over the past 5 years that the economic case for moving to Dubai, which was always the primary draw, has evaporated for most people. Housing costs are the most visible and painful component. Rental prices have increased 60% to 80% since 2020, depending on the area. A one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, something like Jumeirah Lake Towers, Business Bay, or Dubai Marina, that rented for AED 55,000 to 65,000 annually in 2020, now costs AED 95,000 to 120,000. A two-bedroom unit that a family would need has gone from AED 85,000 to 95,000 to AED 140,000 to 170,000. Three-bedroom villas in family-friendly communities like Arabian Ranches, Jumeirah Village Circle, or Dubai Hills have exploded from AED 120,000 to 140,000 to AED 210,000 to 260,000. When recruiters talk to candidates about relocating to Dubai, housing cost is the first objection that kills deals. A mid-level professional from London, Mumbai, or Sydney runs the numbers and realizes that after paying rent, they'll have less disposable income in Dubai than they would staying where they are, despite Dubai's lack of income tax. The tax advantage, which used to compensate for other costs and inconveniences, no longer offsets the reality of spending 50% to 65% of your salary on housing alone. For families, the school fee crisis has made Dubai prohibitively expensive. International school fees range from AED 40,000 to 90,000 per child annually for decent schools, with premium institutions charging AED 100,000 to 120,000. A family with 2 or 3 children is looking at AED 150,000 to 300,000 in annual education costs before they've paid for anything else. When you add rent, utilities, transportation, food, health insurance, and basic living expenses, a family needs a household income of at least AED 60,000 to 75,000 per month just to maintain a middle-class lifestyle. Most job offers don't come close to supporting that. The employers who are hiring also aren't adjusting compensation packages to reflect the cost increases. Salary bands for most positions have been flat or have increased only marginally, maybe 8% to 12% over 5 years, while living costs have risen 50% to 70%. Companies justify this by pointing to the tax-free status and lifestyle benefits of Dubai, but candidates aren't buying it anymore. They can do basic math, and the math doesn't work. Benefits packages have also been stripped down. The comprehensive packages that used to make Dubai attractive, housing allowances that covered actual rent, school fee support for multiple children, annual flights home for the whole family in business class, generous end-of-service gratuity, comprehensive health insurance are disappearing. Now, companies offer minimal housing allowances that don't cover rent, limited or no school fee support, economy flights once a year if you're lucky, and basic health insurance that requires significant out-of-pocket spending for anything beyond primary care. When recruitment firms present these packages to candidates, the response is often immediate rejection. Why would I uproot my family, leave behind our support network, move to a place where we have no long-term security, deal with the stress and cost of relocation, all to end up with less financial security and a lower quality of life than we have now? It's a reasonable question, and recruiters increasingly have no good answer. The quality of life that Dubai offers has also deteriorated in ways that make it less attractive as a destination, particularly for families, and for people who value work-life balance, community, and lifestyle over pure financial compensation. The city that used to market itself as offering the best of everything, career opportunities, luxury amenities, safety, convenience, has revealed itself to be far more complicated and often unpleasant than the marketing suggested. The work culture in Dubai is brutal and getting worse. 60 to 70-hour work weeks are standard in most industries, not the exception. The concept of work-life balance barely exists. Employers expect employees to be available at all hours, responding to emails and messages on evenings, weekends, and during supposed vacation time. The hustle culture is so pervasive that taking time off or setting boundaries is seen as weakness or lack of commitment. For people relocating from countries where labor protections exist and work-life balance is valued, the Dubai work culture is a shock that many can't sustain long-term. The visa system creates constant anxiety and insecurity. Your residency is tied to your employment, which means that losing your job or deciding to leave triggers an immediate countdown to deportation. You have 30 to 60 days to find a new sponsor, or you must leave the country. There's no unemployment insurance, no social safety net, no grace period to figure out your next move while staying in the place you've built your life. This creates a persistent undercurrent of stress, especially for families with children in school, mortgages or long-term rental commitments, and social connections. You can live in Dubai for 10, 15, 20 years and you're always one job loss away from being forced to leave. For families considering relocation, this insecurity is increasingly a deal breaker. Parents don't want to uproot their children to a place where their ability to stay depends entirely on employment status, and where there's no path to permanent residency or citizenship for most people. The Golden Visa program, which offers longer-term residency, is available only to investors, property owners, and high-earning professionals. The vast majority of expatriates don't qualify and have no realistic path to qualify. That means everyone is temporary, everyone is transient, and building a real life, investing in property, integrating into community, always comes with the knowledge that it could all end abruptly through circumstances outside your control. The social isolation that comes from living in Dubai's transient expatriate communities is also driving people away. Dubai has no real sense of community or social cohesion. The population constantly churns as people arrive and leave. Building lasting friendships is difficult when everyone around you is also temporary and evaluating whether to stay or go. The cultural fragmentation, dozens of nationalities living parallel lives with minimal integration, means there's no shared social fabric or community identity to anchor yourself to. For people relocating from places with strong community ties, extended family nearby, long-term friendships, and social networks built over years or decades, the social isolation of Dubai is jarring and often unbearable. Parents describe the difficulty of forming meaningful connections with other parents when everyone is stressed, busy, and likely to leave within 2 or 3 years. Singles and young professionals describe a shallow social scene dominated by transactional networking and superficial interactions. Older expatriates and retirees who thought they might settle in Dubai describe a sense of being invisible and irrelevant in a city obsessed with youth and status. The climate and environmental conditions are also becoming harder to ignore or downplay. Dubai's summers, which now stretch from May through September, are genuinely unbearable. Temperatures regularly exceed 40-30 degrees C to 46 degrees C with humidity that makes it feel even hotter. You cannot be outside for more than a few minutes without risking heat, exhaustion. Outdoor activities, exercise, even walking from your car to a building become ordeals to be minimized. For families with young children or people who value outdoor lifestyle, spending 5 months of the year trapped indoors in air conditioning is depressing and unhealthy. Air quality is also a growing concern. Dust storms, vehicle emissions, industrial pollution, and construction create air quality conditions that are often classified as unhealthy, especially for children, elderly people, and anyone with respiratory issues. Parents are increasingly uncomfortable raising children in an environment where going outside on many days means exposing them to harmful pollutants. The relentless construction, the noise, the traffic, the chaos of a city that's constantly tearing itself down and rebuilding creates environmental stress that wears people down. Dubai never feels settled or finished. It's always in a state of becoming, and for people who want stability and calm, that constant flux is exhausting. The competition from other destinations has also intensified dramatically, and Dubai is losing that competition for talent across multiple segments. For professionals in the Gulf region, Saudi Arabia has become the obvious choice over Dubai. The kingdom's Vision 2030 transformation is creating genuine economic opportunities across multiple sectors. Salaries are competitive with or better than Dubai, often with better benefits packages. The cost of living in Riyadh, Jeddah, and emerging cities is significantly lower than Dubai. Housing costs are 40% to 50% less for equivalent accommodation. School fees are lower. Daily expenses are more manageable, and the Saudi government is offering genuine incentives, residency pathways, regulatory clarity, and support for businesses and professionals in ways that Dubai no longer does. Multiple recruitment firms report that candidates who might have chosen Dubai 5 years ago are now specifically requesting Saudi opportunities. The narrative has flipped. Saudi Arabia is seen as the future, the place with growth potential and opportunity. Dubai is seen as saturated, expensive, and past its prime. Abu Dhabi is also pulling talent away from Dubai, offering a more stable, better governed alternative with lower living costs and better work-life balance. Qatar continues to attract professionals in energy, education, and government sectors with competitive packages and lower costs. Even Oman and Bahrain, traditionally seen as secondary destinations, are becoming more attractive as people realize they can maintain a Gulf lifestyle at a fraction of Dubai's cost. Beyond the Gulf, the rise of remote work has fundamentally changed the calculus of relocating to Dubai. Why move to an expensive, stressful city when you can work remotely for a US or European company while living in Lisbon, Bali, Mexico City, Budapest, or Bangkok? Remote work has eliminated the need to physically relocate for many professional roles, and people are choosing destinations that offer better quality of life, lower costs, and more pleasant environments than Dubai. Portugal has become particularly popular for remote workers and professionals leaving Dubai. The cost of living is 50% to 60% lower than Dubai. The quality of life is exceptional. The weather is pleasant. There are pathways to permanent residency and EU citizenship, and the country actively welcomes foreign residents. Multiple people I know who left Dubai in the past 2 years specifically relocated to Portugal and describe it as the best decision they ever made. Southeast Asian cities like Chiang Mai, Ho Chi Minh City, and Bangkok are attracting young professionals and digital nomads who might have considered Dubai a decade ago. These cities offer vibrant expat communities, extremely low costs, excellent food and culture, and a more relaxed lifestyle than Dubai's relentless grind. For someone earning a Western salary remotely, living in Southeast Asia offers a standard of living that Dubai can't match at any price point. Even traditional expat destinations like the UK, Australia, Canada, and the United States are regaining appeal as people realize that the tax savings from Dubai don't compensate for the quality of life, security, and opportunities those countries offer. Yes, you pay more in taxes, but you get healthcare, education, social services, job security, pathways to citizenship, and the ability to build a permanent life. For families especially, that trade-off increasingly makes sense. The pandemic also fundamentally shifted how people think about where they live and work. The forced pause of 2020 and 2021 gave people time to reflect on what actually matters to them. And for many, the answer wasn't maximizing income in a city they didn't really like. The desire for proximity to family, for community connections, for outdoor access, for work-life balance, for stability, all increased. Dubai, which offers none of those things in abundance, suddenly felt less attractive than it did when career advancement and income maximization were the only considerations that mattered. The information flow about Dubai's reality has also changed dramatically. 20 years ago, Dubai's reputation was largely shaped by marketing and by the selective stories that early expatriates chose to tell. Today, social media, expat forums, review sites, and word of mouth paint a much more accurate and often harsh picture of what living in Dubai is actually like. Prospective expatriates do their research, and what they find increasingly steers them away. Instagram and YouTube are full of content creators showing the reality of Dubai life. The traffic, the costs, the stress, the loneliness, the transience. Expat Facebook groups and Reddit communities are filled with people venting about struggles, sharing cautionary tales, and advising newcomers to be realistic about the challenges. LinkedIn is full of posts from people who've left Dubai explaining why and encouraging others to consider alternatives. This organic, peer-to-peer information sharing is far more trusted than official promotional content, and the narrative it creates is largely negative. Employers trying to recruit talent are finding that candidates come to conversations already skeptical, having read stories and watched videos about the reality of Dubai life. The burden of proof has shifted. Instead of the candidate needing to be convinced that Dubai is the right move, the employer now needs to convince the candidate that the stories they've heard aren't true or don't apply to them. And often they can't, because the stories are true. The demographic shifts in who's coming to Dubai are also telling. The city is attracting fewer families. fewer senior professionals, fewer skilled specialists, and more single young people in their 20s who view Dubai as a short-term opportunity to earn money before moving on. The length of stay for new arrivals is shortening. People used to come to Dubai planning to stay 5, 7, 10 years. Now, 2 to 3 years is the norm, with many leaving even sooner. This creates a reinforcing cycle of transience. When everyone around you is planning to leave within a few years, when the friends you make are already talking about their next destination, when the professional network is constantly churning, it becomes harder to invest emotionally and practically in building a life in Dubai. The city becomes a way station rather than a destination, a place you pass through rather than a place you belong to. For Dubai's economy and society, the inability to attract and retain expatriate talent has massive implications. The city depends entirely on imported labor and expertise to function. Emiratis make up less than 10% of the population. Without expatriates, the economy doesn't operate. Schools don't have teachers, hospitals don't have nurses and doctors, offices don't have workers, restaurants don't have staff, construction sites don't have laborers. Every sector depends on people choosing to come to Dubai and stay long enough to contribute. When the flow of talent slows or reverses, the city faces a choice. Either make Dubai more attractive by addressing the cost of living, improving quality of life, creating pathways to long-term residency, reforming labor laws, and listening to what residents actually need, or accept a smaller, less dynamic economy with chronic labor shortages and declining competitiveness. So far, the government shows little interest in the former and seems willing to tolerate the latter. The government's response has been to double down on attracting ultra-high net worth individuals, investors, and remote workers through visa reforms like the Golden Visa and the Remote Work Visa. These programs get headlines, but they don't address the fundamental problem. The teachers, nurses, engineers, managers, small business owners, skilled workers, the people who make a functioning city possible, aren't high net worth individuals. They're regular professionals who need affordable housing, good schools, job security, and a reasonable quality of life. None of the government's programs address their needs. There's also been a push to attract more tourists to compensate for weak resident spending. But tourism doesn't replace a stable resident population. Tourists visit for a few days, they don't buy homes, enroll children in schools, build businesses, or create the economic activity that comes from people actually living in a place. An economy built primarily on tourism and transient visitors is inherently unstable and less prosperous than one built on a stable resident population. The future trajectory is concerning. If Dubai can't reverse the exodus of expatriate talent and can't attract new arrivals to replace those leaving, the city will face labor shortages across all sectors, particularly in professional and skilled roles. Economic growth will slow or reverse as businesses struggle to find workers and scale operations. Tax revenues will decline as the resident population shrinks. Real estate markets will face downward pressure as demand from residents falls. Schools will close or consolidate as enrollment drops. The social fabric will continue thinning as communities that took years to build dissolve. Some argue that this is a natural correction, that Dubai overexpanded and needs to right-size to a more sustainable population level. There's some truth to that. But the risk is that the decline overshoots and Dubai enters a doom loop where declining population reduces economic activity, which makes the city less attractive, which drives more people to leave, which reduces economic activity further. Breaking out of that loop is difficult and requires the kind of policy changes and government responsiveness that Dubai hasn't demonstrated. For the individuals and families who are choosing not to move to Dubai or who are leaving, the decision is often liberating rather than disappointing. They're not fleeing failure, they're making a rational choice to pursue better opportunities, higher quality of life, and more security elsewhere. Dubai had its moment, a 20-year run when it was genuinely the best option for certain types of ambitious expatriates. That moment is past, and people are moving on. The tragedy is that Dubai could fix many of these problems if there was political will to do so. Implement rent controls or create affordable housing. Reform the visa system to provide stability and pathways to permanent residency. Enforce labor laws to protect workers and create better work-life balance. Reduce the endless fees and charges that make operating in Dubai so expensive. Invest in social infrastructure and community building rather than endless megaprojects and luxury developments. Listen to what residents actually need rather than what looks good in press releases. But those changes would require acknowledging that the current model is broken, and that acknowledgement doesn't seem forthcoming. Instead, the official narrative remains relentlessly positive. Dubai is thriving, breaking records, attracting unprecedented investment. Meanwhile, the people who actually make the city function are quietly concluding that their futures lie elsewhere and voting with their feet. Walk through Dubai today, and you can feel the transience, the sense that fewer people are really here, really invested, really building something lasting. The excitement that used to define the expatriate community has been replaced by a calculating pragmatism. Extract what value you can and get out before the costs exceed the benefits. That's not a recipe for a thriving city. That's a recipe for managed decline. And that's why nobody wants to move to Dubai anymore. The promise was always bigger than the reality, but for a long time, the gap was small enough that people could convince themselves it was worth it. Now, the gap has widened into a chasm, and the people who would have taken that leap a decade ago are choosing to stay where they are or go somewhere else entirely. Dubai's moment as the ultimate destination for global expatriate talent is ending, and what comes next is anyone's guess. Have you chosen not to move to Dubai? Have you left and regretted it? Or was it the best decision you made? Share your experience in the comments and subscribe for more honest discussions about life in Dubai beyond the Instagram facade.